All right, welcome back to another Explore EquatIO Math Monday. So again, my name is Louis Shanafelt. We are in episode 8, if you can believe that. And joining me is obviously my co-host, Ryan. Ryan, say hello.
Hey, everyone.
All right. So today's topic is going to be all about Mathspace. So definitely one of my most favorite features inside of EquatIO would be the Mathspace and the web application, because we can really do some robust teaching through the web app and using kind of what I like to call that canvas white space or whiteboard, if you will. So I'm going to start things off and share my screen, and we will let you see. Hopefully you can see my screen there. So perfect. Look at that little Bitmoji. So someone got me busy with a Bitmoji, Ryan. I knew you'd think that's pretty cool.
I was going to say, you're quite a talented artist, Louis. I didn't realize that.
And I got a lot more hair in this picture, so that's great. So that being said, let's jump right into Mathspace. So what's amazing really to me is as many webinars as I've been busy doing, since the whole COVID thing started was, people have always been very familiar with EquatIO from a Chrome extension standpoint or the Windows application standpoint. And, one thing that I still find very, very odd is that people just aren't aware of this platform. And honestly, it's one of my favorite pieces of EquatIO. So we kind of wanted to dive in here on episode 8 and kind of show you all things Mathspace. So that being said, Ryan and I got quite a few topics to go through here today, and want to get started with kind of just a full overview of what is the dashboard. Before we start here, take a look at my Chrome Omnibox here at the top. All I did was visit equatio.texthelp.com to get here. So you may want to bookmark this. You can just go to, let me close that so you can see this a little bit easier potentially. It's a little less distracting. So equatio.texthelp.com. If you actually log out, if I log out here, let me show everyone what this looks like. It might be helpful. You'll actually see this screen to authenticate for the very first time. So we have lots of ways to authenticate and simply sign in with Google. If you have that Google account, you can also use those Microsoft credentials if need be. So just wanted to show you that authentication screen. You should see that on your first visit to this website. That being said, now that I'm inside the dashboard, notice as I start to scroll down, obviously, if, being the EquatIO guy that I am, I have lots of time to make these thumbnails. I know teachers, find, that's one of the most difficult things, right, is finding time. That's why I really think this platform would be really good from like a district coaching perspective, or maybe a math coach at your school or location could maybe create these math spaces for their teachers. Teachers don't have time, right? You're busy with parents and grades and conferences and things like that. So maybe you could have a math coach or something, show them this video, episode 8, and show them how they could create math spaces, and they could share these out with the teachers within a school or within a district. So just kind of scrolling here so you can see the different possibilities. I'm going to scroll back up to the top. So all of these are under this tab here called Spaces. Notice I have a search box, so if you're searching for something in particular, you can do that as well. I'm going to go through this dashboard, and then we'll go right over to Ryan to kind of show you what's new in Mathspace. The second tab here is your assignments. So when I, the teacher, click on my assignments, these are things that, obviously I have sent out to individuals to complete. Because I don't have permission to kind of share these things, I don't want to click on this, but you'll notice on this particular Mathspace, I have 34 assignments that came in for this. So this was done obviously during a webinar where I had some people participating, and 34 people submitted the Mathspace back to me. So think of those 34 people potentially as students of yours. I could click on this and then go in and provide immediate feedback. And Ryan and I are going to show that to you today. So these are all things that have been submitted, and these are items typically that I need to go and score and grade. Now, submitted assignments, when I click on this third tab, your submitted assignments are things that you have submitted to another teacher. So you might think to yourself, hey, Louis, if you're the teacher, why is it that you have a submitted assignments button? So what would be the intention or the purpose of this? Well, I know as a former math teacher, I used to go to a lot of PD, and in those professional development sessions, these would be things that I have participated in. So in other words, I'm playing the role of a student, although I'm a, old man and I'm a teacher, right? So just know that you can submit assignments even if you're a teacher. We don't ask people to identify as students and teachers in EquatIO because we don't collect sensitive data from folks. And then the last thing here is this archived button. So these are things, the math spaces that I've created. Notice this is kind of just a bunch of stuff that I didn't want to see in my spaces anymore. And notice I can click here on this clear trash can and it'll restore that space if I accidentally delete something or archive it. Have had lots of people say, hey, Louis, Ryan, is it possible to delete a math space? Not currently. It's just something we don't really want to touch right now. We want to create this archived folder so that way you can retrieve and restore these if you make a mistake on your end. So this is kind of the Mathspace dashboard in its entirety. And I just wanted to show what all 4 of those buttons and what the purpose of those buttons are. So
one of the good things that bring up a minute as well, Louis, is that you've got that spaces and there's a whole big list of spaces in there.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to scroll down to get to what it is you want. One of the things we're working on at the minute is adding categories onto each space. So you could categorize, like say, for example, you got your finding angle measures in there. You could put a tag of angle measurements,
right.
Grade 8, grade 9, and then you could sort those by different grades, different types, different categories as well. Absolutely. Oh yeah, great. There you are.
Yep. So let me show this. I already went in, Ryan. So Ryan,
you're way ahead of me.
I'm going to show this at the very end, but Ryan picked a really good place to kind of interject. So Ryan, if you can kind of talk about this. What I did is I've gone into a staging environment that we use at TextHelp. And Ryan, if you can want to speak to these tags, you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So the add tag button that will just allow you to click on for each individual space, allow you to categorize that math space with, you've got things in there like functions, geometric concepts, and you can add as many tags onto a space as you want.
Yep.
So then to be able to find that again later on, you can click on filter by tag in the top left.
Yep. Just
underneath search spaces. Yep. And you can now type by pressing there elementary or first grade.
Yep. So let me, since I have done one that's elementary, where did it go? Elementary. Let me go. Oh, see, these are Paul's.
Yeah, you can click on elementary on the space itself. It should filter.
On this one?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
If I click on that, yep, and you'll notice how the tag is right there. Perfect.
Yeah, exactly. So that is something we're actively developing at the minute, and hopefully that's not too far away. I would like to think in the next couple of weeks we'll be able to get that out to customers and out to teachers for them to give us a little bit of feedback about it. But I think that's going to be a really, really useful time-saving device for teachers, definitely.
Absolutely. So Ryan, one of the things that's kind of unique about this or interesting from my perspective, so before I was a TextHelp employee, I always really wanted, from my school district, the ability to kind of folder these. And we had a long discussion, Ryan, myself, and the entire team, and we thought, tagging is really what a lot of folks in development are using right now. So we've decided to add in these tags so you guys will have the opportunity to organize these tags, which is something that you've been wanting and requesting for a long time. It's really, really cool to see on my end, some of these things that you guys have been asking for kind of come to fruition. So really, really cool how we're going to have that tagging. Like Ryan said, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, hopefully you'll have some time for vacation here coming up. And just think, hey, this will be in place come back to school time. So as you start to make your lesson plans and math spaces for back to school, you'll know that tagging feature should be in below. Awesome that you mentioned that, Ryan. Thanks for mentioning that. So The other thing that we wanted to show here, if we can switch to Ryan's screen, Ryan's going to talk about, that whole paging experience, which is something we pushed out last week. And Ryan, if you want to show how paging works and how you can, the options within paging, that would be awesome.
Sure. Thanks, Lee. So one of the recent bits of work we've done for Mathspace was to add multiple pages onto each space. So before we used to just have this little canvas area that Louis talked about, and you kind of were really restricted into just saying, this is my working area, and then I can share it with the student and get it back, but they have to work within that area as well. So an awful lot of times, certainly whenever I was sharing Mathspaces, I ended up like making things smaller, not really that legible. And it's really, really difficult as well to give a student like a piece of working area as well, just their own space for them to, put down their thoughts on the piece of paper, show their working as well, obviously. So this is where I think that the new pages for me comes in really, really useful. So what I'm going to do is I've got this problem here, and I've got some pulleys and some forces, and I've got a question here at the top. So I'm going to consider that page to be my question page. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that page with the question, with the diagram, and then I'm going to create a working area for the student out of that. So I'm just going to click on these 3 dots above page 1, and I'm going to click on the duplicate this page button. And I'm going to give it a little second as my machine is quite slow. So that gives me page 2, which is an exact copy of page 1. So including my little pulley and everything. And do you like, by the way, I put different colors in for the pulleys as well? Yeah. That's just my level of effort into this problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take away the values on the right-hand side here. I'm going to click on those and press delete. And I'm going to make that right-hand side the working area for the student. So I'm going to go into my shapes and just create a basic rectangle here. Draw that out into here. I'll maybe just change the background color of that to be white. Any idea why we picked like really, really bright pink for the default color in there, Louis?
That's a good question. My only guess is we picked like the read-write color, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you could be right. Yeah. You could be right. Either way, so we're going to change it back from pink to a more standard white.
Yeah.
And then I'll probably just put some text over the top of it. So insert text, show you're working. And I'm going to insert that into the space. Click on that button, there we go. And then I'm going to drag that into my working area. So now whenever I share that with the student, they're going to be able to flick between the problem and their answer as well. So they can refer back to page 1 if they need to, or they can stay on page 2, show their working whilst also having visibility of the problem. And I think that's a real important thing as well for students, because students with, students find it hard to conceptualize the problem, let alone having to remember what the problem was, and then go and try and solve it and flip back and forward, back and forward. So if you've got the problem on the screen as well as the solution on the screen, it's going to be a lot easier for them to be able to show their working properly.
Yeah, that's really why I, had asked Ryan. I know he kind of went over this a little bit, and maybe it was episode 7 or 6 prior to this. And I said, we kind of flew through that, and I really wanted Ryan to show that again, because Ryan hit on that perfectly, where he said, the students having to flip back and forth is a real struggle for a lot of students. They shouldn't have to memorize the numbers from one place and have to, what was that number again, and go back and forth and back. So being able to duplicate that page would be really, really great. We got a live question. Look at that, Ryan. Can the pull diagram have an alternate description? Want to take that?
Yeah, so we have alternate text labels as well for all shapes in Mathspace. So you can change the spoken text of that visual representation of the left-hand side. You can also do that individually per shape. So I can change the weight of M1 or the weight M2, and I can give them individual labels, or I can highlight the entire diagram, group those together, and then give them a label then as a whole. So you can label anything within Mathspace, even the text itself. You can label the text as something else as well while you're working in there. And you can also label that box on the right-hand side. So that box could be called, working area, for example, for the student as well.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, I think it does. That's exactly how I would have answered it. I see a second question there as well. So Barb, I think might be best. I don't know, unless Ryan, you think you can show this right now. Can students make their own work page, for example, if the teacher doesn't hit that add page button?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once you share this with the student, they're going to get that exact same user interface that the teacher has as well. So they can create their own pages too. So they could just start off with a blank page. If they need more working area, they can click on the Add New Page button at the top. And like I said, this would be the same for a student or a teacher. So if I was a student right now, I'd have a completely blank page to work off of. I could use that as a notepad, somewhere to, formulate my thoughts before going back to the answer. And the student can leave that there and share it with the teacher, or they can, use it as a notepad and then remove this page before sharing it back to the teacher, and they can give them then the answer that was on page 2.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, thanks for those live questions. So Ryan, I'm going to jump to question 3 here, or at least bullet point 3 that we have is we are now going to show, if we could, let's flip back to my space here. And what I'm going to do is I'd like to, it's often, very time consuming to do this type of feedback loop when you only have one person doing the webinar, which usually is me. So I love the fact that Ryan's in this call with me, because I think it's going to be really neat for you all to kind of see this live and in person. And that is, how can we utilize Mathspace as a remote learning tool? But really, I don't want you guys to think of Mathspace as something that's only good for remote learning, because I saw the potential and the positive things within Mathspace that I thought of long before COVID, right? So one of the things that we can do is we can take a Mathspace that's already been created. And I told Ryan I'd keep this real easy on him. We don't want to, Monday morning here, at least where I'm at, that's a little later in the afternoon. I should give Ryan a real zinger, but
you're actually going to have to work really hard to get something that's easy for me to solve, Louis. That's the irony behind that.
So what I did is I thought, well, we'll just give him something like fractions, right? So what I wanted to do is to kind of show you here is this is, of course, from the teacher side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this Mathspace and assign it to a live student. Ryan, of course, being that live student versus me being the live student, which can be somewhat challenging to show. So this will be great. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this share button. And what I want Ryan to do is to be able to provide feedback, student feedback. So remember how I stated that district coaches, instructional coaches, school-based coaches can share this with teachers within their district or within their school building. They're going to want to leave it on make a copy for each person. And they're going to want to hit continue and to send this link to the adults that they want to share that Mathspace with. But I just wanted to show you this since I didn't show you that live on the spot. So this link will be good for sharing of the Mathspaces from the instructional design standpoint to other teachers. What I need, though, to share with Ryan, my student, is I'm going to actually click here and select expect a response. So notice the asterisk here, though. But so this asterisk indicates that this is for premium users only for EquatIO. You will be able to see this from the student side on a non-premium license. It's just your toolbar will be grayed out. So just keep that in mind. The student needs to be authenticated on their end as well. And I'm going to click continue. And notice we have some integrations here, right? But typically I like to point people to the Google Classroom integration. I also can just take this link and point it out to, let's say, Ryan's email. Let's say I didn't use Google Classroom, or I want to put this link in a learning management system like Schoology or Canvas. So this is where this link becomes really impactful. I'm going to take this link, okay? And when I take this link, I'm going to give this link to Ryan in a very secretive way here. And Ryan is going to now open this link from his side. So yep, we're going to toggle over to Ryan's computer, which we've done. And Ryan is going to open up that EquatIO link. And I want you to notice the real big difference here on Ryan's side. If you look in the top right corner of Ryan's screen here, once this loads, you're not going to see a share button. So Ryan, hover over that. Yep, perfect. That little, sure. I call it a paper airplane, whatever you want to call it. But to me, it looks like a paper airplane. So Ryan, we're all going to watch Ryan struggle, hopefully not, through this problem. So Ryan, go ahead and show those multiple means.
I really thought you were going to give me a heads up before this, Louis, as well, so I could sort of have this problem solved. I didn't realize I was going to solve it live on air.
Oh yeah, we're putting you
pressure
right here.
Pressure. So, do you want me to put the fractions in here? Yeah.
Yeah. You can just do 3/5 for the first one, and then so Ryan's making digital math here on the first example. And then Ryan's going to insert that. You can notice how he can just drag that to wherever he wants, wherever his teacher can find the answer. And then Ryan, go ahead and miss number 2 for me.
Yeah, I'm just going to make it a different color so you can see that.
Yeah. So that's good. Yeah. So showing a different color would be great, because that way the teacher might, ask her students, please put all answers in blue, or and Ryan's going to show how he can use like the toolbar to maybe.
Yeah, sure. Well, what I was going to do is probably just going to use the speech input.
Sure.
And we'll put in an incorrect fraction for the second one.
Yep. Sure.
So in our speech input tools, I really like this. Actually, speech input is really good for me. It's also, I find it fast for me to be able to put my math in.
Right.
But it's also great, for students who are struggling with the keyboard. It's going to be, a lot easier for them to speak into their microphone than it is to, hunt about in the keyboard. And, especially whenever you're creating math as well, not so much with EquatIO, but if they're looking around the keyboard for the numbers or keys they're not familiar with as well, it can really slow them down. So that's where I think the speech comes in really useful. So I'm just going to click on Start Speech Input and allow access to my microphone as well. 3/7. Oh, let's give me 3 divided by 7. Let's try it again. 4/4.
Doesn't like that either, does it?
Yeah, it doesn't like that either. So I'm just going to put in 4/4. Yep. Sorry, my internet connection has been so slow today. So you'll see the big delay too whenever I click on Insert Math here.
No worries. And then Ryan, so even though he spoke that, it's going to turn into digital math. He can drag that over, and then this is the great part. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yep, sure. And you want me to submit that back to you then, Louis?
Please.
Cool. Off it goes.
So he has just shared that. You'll notice he'll get a dialog box from that student side. And then we're going to switch back to Louis here. So we're going to show my screen. And on my screen, where am I going to go? So it's just kind of, I'm going to quiz you all here. Where am I going to go? I'm going to go to my assignments, right? So when I went over the dashboard, I said that anything that you send out to students is going to be an assignment. So from the teacher side, I'm going to click on my assignments and take a look at what I have. So I have an assignment that was given out 5 minutes ago. And then because I think I have Ryan's permission, I'm going to click on this and look how great this is. So Ryan's assignment will be here. And then I'm going to click on this, and you'll notice on the screen here that you're watching that I can then go in here and provide feedback, right? So look up here in the top right corner. I'm actually in the feedback view. And when I go into feedback view, I need to now reply to Ryan, right? I'm going to give him potentially positive feedback here with number 1. And maybe I want him to resubmit for number 2 since we don't have a correct answer. So I have a couple ways I can do this. I like to just go into the equation editor, and I like showing this because I think a lot of people don't often realize that we actually can input text and have a text editor right inside of our math editor. So I like to go here and click on this button. But I also love this little shortcut that Ryan showed me, although he probably doesn't realize I didn't know that at the time. I type in TE and just tap enter, and look how quick that is. I mean, it saves you from having to jump over to the mouse and click on insert text. So we got that little TE in our prediction, and I can put Ryan, great job. I like typing in live too, Ryan. While you're doing math live, I like typing, people watching me to make sure I don't mess up. Great job on number 1. And please resubmit assignment so I know you understand this for number 2. So I'm going to then arrow to the right. If I arrow to the right on my arrow keys on my keyboard, that takes you out of your text editor. So notice how I'm ready to start using EquatIO prediction again. So I'm going to then insert this, or actually, let me just insert this, and for time's sake, and I'm going to put this where I know Ryan can see this. Usually I like to put on here, from Mr. Shanafelt too. That way he knows the teacher provided that feedback. Doesn't really matter though. So there's the feedback. And then I'm going to hover right over this so everyone can see that. I'm going to send this back to the student, which of course in this case is Ryan. So I'm going to click OK. Now Ryan is going to demonstrate how he is notified of the assignment. How does Ryan know to go find that feedback, and where does he go? Go ahead, Ryan, take it away.
Yep, sure, thanks. I'll just point out as well, my speech has started working about 10 minutes after I tried to demo the speech. That's just typical of broadband over here in Ireland. It just really is that slow. I'm just going to go back to my dashboard, EquatIO.textop.com, and then I'm going to go to my submitted assignments. And in there, I've got my fractions shaded region from yourself, Louis.
Yep.
I click on that, and that then opens up my assignment that I've submitted, and I can see your feedback in here, with the feedback view being on as well. So if I wanted to go back and change things, I can toggle feedback view off so that hides your comments, Louis. And I can go fix that solution on the right-hand side, or I can switch the feedback back on again.
Yeah.
So you want me to resubmit that again to you?
Yeah, why not?
Sure. Just trying to get this right in my head.
Yeah, no problem.
So I'm going to edit the math. I'll change the top one to 5. That'll be it. And replace. There we go. And submit. And that just starts the whole feedback loop again.
Yep. And we're going to switch back to the teacher side then. So Ryan has made his adjustments. And notice how on my end, when I go back into, and you didn't see this because it happened so quick, but it actually refreshed on my screen, which I don't think I've ever really seen that because you're always like a second or two behind. But when Ryan resubmitted that, it flickered on my screen and refreshed in real time. Typically, you wouldn't see it that way unless you had maybe 2 monitors and two Mathspace windows open. But I'm going to go back to my assignments here, and you'll see here that I have it's lit up in blue. So I click back on that, and then, Ryan Graham just now. So I'll see that that's his refreshed, responses. So I can see my original feedback on there, right, Ryan? So that's supposed to stay there.
Yep.
And then I see his replaced math, which is now correct. So then since I'm in feedback view, I could then click on this, and Ryan, couldn't I just click on edit math?
Yeah, you can edit it. Yep.
Yeah, and just bring this right back in, and then resubmit the feedback for Ryan. So I can simply go right back in here and replace. So really great stuff. And Ryan, you're now invited to every webinar from here on out. So it's really great to have this.
Just so I can act as your student whenever we're submitting assignments.
So typically, like if this is a train the trainer model, just for people that are paying attention, typically how I show this, like if you're going to be teaching this to faculty members, it would be really, really great for you to have multiple Chrome accounts. I know that might not always be easy, but what I do is I change to another Google account so I can show that student loop, if that makes sense to everyone there. So using what's called Chrome People would be really, really beneficial for any EquatIO users out there that are going to be asked to present this to a faculty. So use
I think as well, what we did right there, Louis, on remotely, you and I, two different machines, just on like a Google Meet or a Zoom call or something like that there as well, where you have your students working alongside you too. This worked really, really well because you get that immediate feedback too, and you can talk them through it and you can explain it through it as well. Yeah.
I think on my first webinar trying to do that, I mean, it was really difficult and cumbersome, and trying to manage multiple Chrome people. So having, that, guinea pig, or person to play along with you, like Ryan was able to do today, is really, really, great. So if you can line someone up for your demo to kind of play the role of the student, like Ryan said, especially if you're doing it virtually, would be really, really impactful for them to see it the way we've modeled it here in this session. Last thing I want to show here is a couple new shapes and kind of some reimagined shapes, I guess, if you will. Lots of users have been writing in. By the way, we have STEM tools in Mathspace. I'm not sure if that's been mentioned or not, but we've added in the periodic table and calculator into Mathspace. So forgot to mention those actually in Ryan and I's bullet points this morning. But the new smart shapes that we've added in are these here. So we've had a number line, and we have here the number of segments. So I can come over here and kind of model this real quick for you. I can also decrease this so we can show things like to the left of 0 and show the negative numbers. I know as a former secondary teacher and starting algebra, students need these, basic number line skills. It was shocking to me kind of how many came to my class and really didn't have that. So the Mathspace number line would be something really, really helpful for students to be able to use. And notice we've added the numbers finally in here for you. Also, we have this guy here. The default is 5 on the number of ticks, but it can be increased or decreased. You can change the label placement. So if you wanted the numbers above or below, maybe your coordinate gets in the way of the number or blocks it, you can then move those. So that's really neat as well. So we have those new, they're not really new. They've been there. They just haven't been labeled. So we have those in there. We also, of course, we added in this compass. So we had some fun with this initially when we were playing. We were making some yellow Pac-Man figures and other things like that. So that was pretty cool to see that. So a lot of really, and this one here I absolutely love, like the clock. The other clock that we had was great, but it wasn't labeled, and it also didn't provide a second hand or for you to put the time on it or the Roman numerals. I don't know if that's really taught anymore, but I know in your house you might have a clock with Roman numerals, and my son still to this day has struggled with that. So you could always use Roman numerals and show this to students to see if they can understand how Roman numerals work. So really puts a lot of time, our developer on this put a lot of time and effort into making and improving these shapes. So really great stuff. And we are actually 1 minute over. I almost did really good today. 1 minute over is not bad though. So,
yeah, I think that's not bad at all for the amount of work we put in for the past half an hour. 1 minute over is not too bad.
Oh, exactly. So, well, this is, like I said, our 8th episode of this, and Ryan and I have really enjoyed, speaking and getting the word out there about EquatIO for the customer. We know that this tool has been extremely helpful for users, during this remote learning phase. But, my hope is that when things do return to whatever that normal is that, EquatIO is not an afterthought. It could be everything that you do inside your math classroom and using Mathspace to assign homework. It doesn't necessarily have to be that remote learning tool. It just can do that, which I think is, is good to point out here as we conclude this. But we know that in the U.S., folks are going on vacation with their families. And that being said, Ryan and I are going to sign off for a few weeks here. We know that'll disappoint some of you out there, but we hope to be back in the fall once, school is back in session. We encourage you to reach out to the TextHelp Twitter account @TextHelp. Ryan and I are both also on Twitter and easily accessible, and we don't mind responding to you directly. So
yeah, I mean, we get some great feedback from customers on Twitter, and I'm sure people have probably noticed as well. An awful lot of the feedback that we get through Twitter makes it into the product at some stage.
Yeah, Ryan and I like to say, your feedback helps drive our roadmap. So please continue to reach out to the TextHelp account, to Ryan and I directly. One of the things we take great pride in is we do listen to our customers, and we try and make changes that'll be impactful for you in your classroom. So we look forward to rejoining you all in the fall. We hope you have a great summer. So Ryan, it's been fun. We'll see you
absolutely
in a couple months.
See you back in the fall.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone. Bye.